Welcome to Let's Pick This Up Next Week. I'm Dee.
And I'm DJ. We're two therapists who like to dive deep into everything from mental health to politics, voting, and whatever else is going on in the world.
We're here to have real conversations about life, the issues that matter, and how it all affects us. Because let's face it, there's always something more to talk about.
Exactly. So grab your coffee, settle in, and join us as we break it all down.
We'll catch you up on the big stuff, the personal stuff, and the things you didn't even know that you needed to think about.
And when we run out of time,
we'll pick this up next week. So DJ, we are entering the season of gratitude. How are you feeling about coming into we've got Thanksgiving coming up this week. We've got Christmas not in the too distant future. How you feeling going into this time of year? You feeling warm fuzzies, gratitude?
Oh gosh, this year I'm feeling a little bit bah humbug, but I'm going to be taking a trip to Palm Springs when I get this brace off. So I am looking forward to that. So hopefully for Christmas and New Year's, I'll be in some sunshine and around some of my old friends.
Nice. Yeah, for audio only listeners, DJ currently has a neck brace on. Thankfully you weren't injured. You just had surgery.
I had surgery. I had 2 discs replaced in my neck. I've lots of hardware in there now.
You're like the Terminator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or $1 Million Man, whatever. All dated references.
Yes. And Inspector Gadget.
Yeah. Do Inspector Gadget. God, I could say I am not bah humbug because I love this time of year. Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday. Many people think my favorite holiday would be Halloween. It is not. It's Thanksgiving. Because Thanksgiving is like Christmas without the presents. Because the presents for Christmas for me is like, it's overwhelming because I am someone, I like to go above and beyond and it needs to be perfect. And like, I can't get out of my own head about that. Like, I have to plan what color of wrapping paper is acceptable that year, but it has to be on recycled paper, at least like 80% consumer recycled. Like, I'm like that level of annoying. But Thanksgiving is like, you just get to like hang out with people you love and be grateful and chill and eat good food. And that sounds amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanksgiving is a pretty great holiday, usually.
So I thought it'd be a good time then to talk about what we're grateful for, which is our friendship.
Yes.
So get some origin story here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes. So Dr. DJ, the main thing that bonded us, that put us in each other's orbit, was that we became counselors. And as many avid listeners may know, we met in grad school. We went to Bowling Green in Ohio. And got our master's in mental health counseling. And that's where we met all those years ago in 2012.
2012 is when we started. Yeah.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah. I always forget that 2012 is when the start of it was because, I think about the graduation, which was 11 years ago. But we've known each other for 13.
Yes, for 13 years.
13.
So I thought it'd be cool to talk a bit about 13 years. I think it popped up relatively recently of like, how Facebook likes to say like, it's your friend anniversary with whoever. My favorite is it pulls those throwback pictures of you. And I always want to like share them to you to be like, years ago. Maybe I'll put something in the show of like our first photo together or something.
Oh, yeah.
Just to show our OG origin story. I thought it'd be cool to spend a little bit of time talking about what brought us to that moment. And I think why it makes that moment in grad school so important, where we formed a lot of lifelong friendships. Like some of my closest friends today are the people we went to grad school with, including you. So what brought you to grad school to be a counselor?
It's interesting because I did not set out to be a mental health therapist. And by the way, I did, mental health and school counseling both. I did both tracks in grad school. So
we had a program that had 2 tracks and there was also a dual track, and DJ did both.
I did
and has never used the school side of what you did.
I haven't. I even actually let my license go, and I don't know why doesn't cost that much, but like I think just because I have so many licenses in 3 states and stuff to like keep up, it was just another one.
It's pricey.
And but I actually wanted to be an occupational therapist because with my bachelor's degree in psychology, I worked with people with developmental disabilities or intellectual disabilities. Now I still like developmental disabilities better, and I worked with a lot of occupational therapists who would like come into the houses that I worked in and provide services and stuff. And I thought it was pretty cool. That's what I wanted to do. I applied to a doctorate program in occupational therapy. I did not get into that program. And so and I realized the program that I applied for was way competitive. Like GPAs were, out of their bachelor's degrees were 4.3 or some shit that I didn't have. So I thought, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to wait and try to apply again, or do I want to apply for something? And I decided to apply to be a school counselor. So that's what brought me to BG. I got it because I had went to BG for my bachelor's. I got accepted into that, talked to an advisor who was like, she did both. And I was like, oh, I should do both. That's what led me to do the mental health track as well. I would never plan on using it. I mean, I really did not think I wanted to be a mental health therapist. But in Ohio, school counseling jobs super competitive, and I applied to over 100 jobs, and I got 3 interviews and no job offers. So I fell back in mental health. As I was doing it, it really was evident to me that like it was what I was meant to be doing. It just felt like it made sense. Like I could conceptualize cases pretty quickly. I could see patterns quickly. When I learned how to do modalities, like I could apply it pretty easily. Like it just seemed like I didn't have to like try really hard to be a therapist. It just seemed to come like second nature to me. So, that's how I got here. But the interesting thing too about grad school for me is that I'm like 20 years older than you, almost 20 years older than you. And everybody else that was in grad school,
We were
most
a
everybody else.
we were a young bunch. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I could have very easily, and not only that, like at that time, it was before I realized that I was trans and I identified as a lesbian. I say that in quotes because it never felt right. But anyway, so not only was I much older, but like I was also queer, and really the only one who was really outwardly like queer at the time in the cohort. So I was older. I was, an old lesbian
Uh,
who was like,
it's because you
and
assumed our sexuality. There's that.
well, yeah, there is. Well, everyone, well, yes. What is the coolest thing to me is I could easily stuck out like a sore thumb. I could easily not been someone who got to be felt like they were part of the group. And like that was not my experience at all. I felt like I was accepted and I had a great time. I mean, some of my best times of my life are grad school. And, I really appreciated how like I had a sense of belongingness in a place to where like I could easily not have had a sense of belongingness. So that's what grad school was to me, and like and you and I like hit it off, pretty
Mhm.
quickly. And I'm trying to remember when it occurred to us that we both had mutual like how that ever
I
came up.
remember.
Yeah, do you? Yeah.
I remember because one of us posted something on Facebook. I'm pretty sure I posted
Mm.
something. And then my mother from another, who
Mhm.
is your childhood bestie,
Mhm.
commented on it. And you were like, wait, how do you know Becky? And I'm like, well, Becky's like my other mom. Like her daughter was my best friend growing up and still one of my closest friends. And it was just this weird, like, oh,
Mhm.
you DJ babysat my best friend
Mhm.
when my best friend and I were were children.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
which was really cool to have like that on top of like just the already connection that we had.
Yeah. And we're from the
Mhm.
same hometown and like all that
Right.
kind of cool stuff too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely share that same sense of grad school was like the sense of like belonging. And I certainly don't want it to sound like, oh, we peaked in grad school through this,
Right.
but really to talk about like that being such an important part of growing at any stage. So like so in Ohio, we have this thing. It used to be called PSOP or post secondary enrollment options, and now it's called CCP. And I forget what the CCP stands for, but essentially, high school students can enroll in college classes
Right.
early, like while they're in high school. And I went to the same school all throughout until my sophomore year, and my mother moved. So I moved school districts and I was like fish out of water, hated this new school. I don't make friends super easily because I'm
Mm.
just like a kind of a weird individual. And I hated it. And so as soon as I found that there was a way to go to college instead of going back to that high school,
Mm. Mhm.
and there's nothing wrong with that school either. The school that I moved to was just very different than the school that I had went to and my sense of belongingness for so long. And so I started college. So instead of going to my junior and senior years of high school, I went to college full time. I only went back to the high school to graduate. So when I graduated high school, I was a junior in college. And so then I
Mm.
moved. I went
Mhm.
to the Ohio State
You
University,
did. Yeah.
the
Did you
Ohio
have
State
a sense
University.
of belongingness there? Did you feel like you had?
To an extent, yeah,
Mhm.
but I was on such, like, a fast forward, like, that's the one thing if I have to pick, like, a regret from my life, not necessarily a regret, but something I look at and think that I did miss out on. I graduated my undergrad when I was 20.
Mhm.
I really didn't experience college for very long because I was only there for 2 years before I graduated, and I was in, like, a bunch of different clubs, like, I still love women. I was in it was the official The Ohio State University Knitting Club,
Mm.
AKA Stitchin' Bitch, where I learned how to knit, and I have this great group of individuals that I was surrounded with, and I did lots of cool things, but I can count on one hand how many friends I have through that period of my life. It was more of just,
Mm.
like, I was on fast forward, was learning to support myself full time, so I was working multiple
Right.
jobs. I had really cool jobs, like, I worked in a research lab. That was the Stress and Immunity Cancer Projects lab, where I learned about the relationship between stress and cancer recurrences and
Mm.
got to interview women who had survived breast cancer 20 years ago or were re-diagnosed, and how mindfulness played a role in their stress reduction. Like, that was fascinating and amazing to me. One of the things that really got me interested in wanting to do psychology long term, because I picked a major at 14,
Mm.
15, and just kind of stuck with it because I'm stubborn.
Really?
So when it was yeah, because I mean, I loved psychology, so when I started picking classes, and,
Wild.
when you start college at 16, they let you take any classes you want. So I just took a bunch of psych classes and everything else. So,
I
uh,
psychology was my bachelor's, but that was my 4th major.
you changed majors that many times?
4 times. Yeah. Mhm.
That's wild. How long
Yeah.
did you go for your bachelor's?
It took me l it took me almost as long for my bachelor's as it did for
Your
my
PhD?
PhD. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, like,
Amazing.
6 years for my bachelor's. Everyone would at that time would tell me that, like, I wasn't supposed to make a career out of my bachelor's
Mm,
degree. Yeah. But, yeah, it was my 4th
that's
major. So
hysterical.
you knew right away, and that's what you stuck with.
I knew it was psychology in some way.
Mhm.
So and actually I could have if I just did psychology, I could have graduated early, but then I'd be 19, graduating in, like, a December, so that's, like, a weird time to graduate.
Mm. Mhm.
Knowing you can do so much and yet so little with a bachelor's in psychology.
Right.
So I tacked on a second. I got a minor in organizational communication, so I could stay for another semester and graduate in spring, like
Mhm.
all the normal and
I
so when it was time to
graduated
start
I
applying.
graduated in December for almost all of my degrees, by the way. My bachelor's,
It's 'cause
my
you're weird.
master's, and I graduated in August, I guess, with my PhD. So, but
Your master's was in August. You graduated in
no,
August with your
I
master's.
graduated in December because I did an extra semester.
Yeah, so did many other people, and they were done in August. Elizabeth was
Mm,
done in August.
mm-mm. Elizabeth was done in December. She graduated the same time as me.
Why did I block this out and thought you all graduated in
I'm
August?
pretty when did you graduate?
May.
Maybe I did
I'm
grad
texting
maybe I
Elizabeth. Put
did
this on
graduate in
pause.
August. I coulda swore
I bet I could
you're right, it was August because I got married in December.
okay.
Mhm.
I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I remember this. You
Yeah,
guys only
you're
had
right.
one more semester." Yeah. Yeah, so no, graduate in a normal month, like June or
Mm,
May.
uh-huh. August is
So
not
when
normal.
I guess August, it's not the worst time to graduate, but I knew
Mhm.
I knew I needed to go to grad school, and I was like, "I don't know what the point is." I knew I couldn't start grad school until the fall, so I'm like, "I might as well just go to school for another semester." Like,
Mm, mhm.
you know, I don't wanna
Yeah, you
I never
guys
got a
all
full-time job to pause me, you know what I mean? I just
right.
kept going kinda straight through.
Yeah, a lot of you in that cohort had went straight from bachelor's to master's. I had worked
Mhm.
for a good 12, 13 years or some shit in the 2001. 11 years in the field before I went back and got my master's degree. So I had done some work with my bachelor's.
I can't imagine how difficult it would be to go back. I mean, I did go back to school for a little bit
Mhm.
after we all graduated, and it's just tough. It's tough to get back to that, and, I always worked, at least part-time while
Mhm.
going to school, and so I just kind of felt like, "That's enough, and I'll just keep doing this and go all the way through." Do you wanna tell everyone's favorite story about our first semester and the folded paper thing?
Yes, and that's what
Or
I
shall I
always
tell
like
it?
every time you
You
talk.
love to go to that
Yeah,
story.
every time you talk about the fact of, like, how old you were when you finished and stuff, I think, because it blew Dr. Huss's mind because we had it was ethics, must have been ethics, right? Class? Because she taught
Yeah, it was our
ethics.
first semester, and we had this exercise where we were told to fold a paper and
Yeah,
to have as many panels as we had decades. So
right,
she's like 0 to 10 is one panel, 11 to 20 is another, 21 to 30 is another,
right,
and so on. And she's like,
and
fold the
you
paper.
folded yours
I
in
fold mine in
half,
half.
and
She
she
literally goes, no one should fold theirs in half.
yeah,
And I'm like, but I only have 2 decades.
mhm, and she
So,
said
like, what do you want me to
she
do?
was like, "That's impossible. Like, how are you in a master's program if you only have 2 decades?" And you're like, I mean, just
Like,
this,
I'm here.
you're here with the 2 decades,
Like,
so
I
we
don't
said
know, y'all accepted me with my 2
mhm,
decades.
yeah,
I mean, I always tell people, and I think
mhm,
I'm used to being the youngest person in a room, but not anymore. Because at this point in my career, it's no longer
right,
novel to be
right,
in your mid-30s and to be where I'm at in my career. Like, it's just
mhm,
at a certain point, you're just in your career, you know?
yeah,
But I mean, I saw my first client before I had my first legal drink. So
right.
it's anytime I try to
Yes, for
think
practicum.
back to like, how long have I been doing this? And I'm like, oh yeah, since
Yeah,
I was 20 when I saw my
yeah.
first
We
client.
all we all went
And
out
you
and
were there with me at
celebrated.
my first legal drink.
Yeah, so I was gonna
Yeah.
say, yeah, you wanted to keep on eating, but you couldn't find your mouth.
We went to a Mexican restaurant and the tequila and the chips were both delicious. And I got intoxicated to the point I did
Uh-huh.
not drive home. Someone else drove me home.
Yes, yeah,
But I just wanted to keep eating, but I couldn't find my mouth
yes,
anymore.
I will never forget that.
We actually made like a cohort t-shirt. Well, I made a cohort t-shirt because I'm someone you can't make a joke to me and me not take it literally. Like, DJ, if
Mhm,
you said to me right now, "Oh, we should take a road trip and meet in Texas," I
mhm,
would text you all of the places we should stop along the way. Like, I will start planning immediately. So when someone jokingly said, "Oh, we should make a t-shirt that has like all
mhm.
of our fun little
We
phrases
did.
on it,"
Mhm,
we did. I made it. And I'm like,
yeah,
here you go. Everybody proof it. And one of them is, I can't find my mouth anymore, is one of the
mhm,
quotes on the back of the
yeah.
t
I
shirt.
still have that T-shirt. Mhm,
I do too.
yeah. We wore all the T-shirts, or did we get them? We went to another I don't know if it was a Mexican restaurant, but all of us were there in our T-shirts. And that was
No, it was the burger place. And
when
you
I
stood on the
tipped
table.
yes, yeah, and, like, got ketchup
Yeah.
all over my hand, and, um, and someone thought that I had cut myself.
And Rachel thought that you cut yourself
Yeah,
open. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, "It's
Um,
ketchup." Yeah,
you just got
that's a good
ketchup
time.
everywhere because you fell
Mhm.
on a table
'Cause I
and
was
you
trying
weren't
to be
intoxicated.
taller in the picture, right? Because like,
You were.
nobody could see my head.
It was the last day of, it must have been the last day of classes in that spring or something like that.
Mhm,
But it brings out this point that, like, when people have such strong shared experiences, it really bonds you, right? And
mhm,
there's a lot of psychology behind that, and I could dive into, like, how creating an in-group and sense of social cohesion because, like, grad school was friggin' hard. We saw each other, like, this is no joke. They didn't Our university at that time didn't have a cohort model, but, like, everyone pretty much started in August, and you had to take the same 4 classes before you could get
mhm,
into practicum, and you were expected to get into practicum your second semester.
mhm,
And then we all just kind of followed the same flow. Taking 4 classes, 1 class each night, Monday through Thursday, 6 to
right.
9 PM for 16 weeks. Like,
Yeah,
you see each other constantly.
yeah,
We would study constantly. Most of us
mhm,
had assistantships with the university, and so, like, Jen, who was my assistantship buddy, we would see each other from 8 until 1, and then we'd, probably go over to our internship for a couple hours or a practicum or whatever, and then, right back at the end, or Leanna and
Mhm.
I would meet up at 6 a.m. for workouts, and then I'd go sit with Jen for 6 hours, and then we'd all meet for froyo and then have class together that night.
Mhm. Yeah.
It wasn't a very intense experience, and it created these, like, really cool bonds.
It really did. Yeah. We did spend so much time together.
So
And,
much.
and even like when we weren't together, we were like messaging about papers and, 'cause, like we're just constantly like in contact with each other.
Do you remember I made a Facebook group for us?
Yes.
And it was because you would always make statuses
Yeah.
saying what papers due or
That's
what were we
right.
supposed to do before whatever
Mhm.
class, and
Yeah.
I got tired of you tagging me in them. So I made a group that was
That's
like,
right.
we can just post everything here.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
really funny to look back and to say like, "Oh, yeah, that was definitely the dynamic of our
Mhm.
relationship starting." I do have to say one embarrassing story about you before we move on from grad school.
Uh-huh.
DJ's openly shared that they have ADHD.
Mhm.
Caffeine makes it worse.
Mhm.
And DJ did not know for the duration of grad school and sometime after that Sprite has caffeine.
Oh yeah.
So you would always drink Sprite
Mhm.
and be like, "Oh, I drink this because it's caffeine free." Sprite is not caffeine free.
Right. Yeah. And I was like I hadn't had caffeine for like so long.
It
Yeah.
was pretty great. And you'd be
Yeah.
bouncing off the walls. This was before medication.
I
Yeah.
did have medication, but a lot of times I would forget to take it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I got
That makes
medication
sense. That makes sense.
right before I started school. But yeah, and, it was always pretty evident when I didn't take my meds. I mean, it's hard to remember to take
Definitely.
ADHD meds because ADHD.
I get it.
Mhm,
And it's something too that I I joke whenever I uh, edits, like kind of fast forwarding roughly to today. Actually, another note about how literal I take things. We said in passing, and I remember exactly when, because you, Leanna, and Leanna's been on a guest on our show before.
mhm,
If you haven't watched that episode, go back, watch it. We talk all about school counselors and why they're so important and why their jobs are so dang cool and impactful. We were sitting in my hotel room after the All Ohio Counselor
mhm,
Conference where you and I presented, and you said, it'd be cool to have a podcast. And within like 2 weeks, I'm like, here's a list of possible names. Here's potential logos.
mhm.
Here's 10 story ideas we can do because I read in articles that said you should be able to have 10, whatever. Like,
Oh,
I
right.
can't take anything
Mhm.
not seriously.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you do because and I think that like that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about our friendship too is that like we balance each other out, pretty
Hmm.
well because you said too you're like if you do a podcast, I want to do it with you. And I said
This is true.
if I do a podcast, I don't think I could do it without you because like I don't think 10 things at a time. I'm like the right now and like, let's do this. I got this great idea. Let's just do this. Who cares about the planning and the like let's just like jump right in. And I appreciate that like you can think like the bigger picture.
Well, no, I think it's helpful though because like
Mhm.
even today, so like our behind the scenes, sometimes we plan out episodes.
Mhm.
We used to plan out episodes much further in advance. Obviously, now our postings, as you can tell, is a bit more sporadic because life is
Right.
just a
It's
different type
yeah.
of busy than it was
Mhm.
when we started this podcast a year ago. But we still like to get together and have these meaningful episodes for folks, and for us too.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time to just hang. And what we do before we press record is we end up talking for like 45 minutes,
Mhm.
and then are like, oh yeah, we should press record and get some of these things down. But I love that when we come together for an episode, it's one of us kind of sparking an idea, and then I typically like I have to have notes to reference. And if you're a person on YouTube that watches, you normally can see me like look to the side, scroll my notes, make sure we're getting everything. DJ, you bring such a great balance to it because I could say stuck in my head all day with these things and just
Mhm.
be very like, let me read what the psychology textbooks say about this thing, but you bring it to life in a much different
Mhm. Mhm.
and improves so much in my opinion what we do.
Yeah. I really do think we've always been a good balance for each other. I mean, like, career wise, training wise, friendship wise, just hanging out wise, like, I mean,
Mhm.
this is a friendship that's always been super meaningful.
Absolutely. Same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I think the podcast has strengthened our relationship too. And I think one thing actually that we started doing, and this was DJ's suggestion a long time ago, before we started doing the podcast is we would send audio notes to each other. And I had just
Mhm.
heavily encouraged this as a person who has adult friendships and knowing how hard it is to like carve out the time to sit and make a phone call. And as silly as that sounds, but it's hard when you're
It
two busy
is.
people. Like DJ and
Mhm.
I, we live on two different sides of the country, two different time zones. I have other friends who, you know, they've got kids or they've got a weird sleep schedule comparatively, whatever it might be. So we send audio notes to each other. And it's great because it's one of those like, get back to it when you can. You know, I'm
Mhm.
just kind of updating you. I tend to do it when I'm driving and I'll have like a
Did ya?
15-minute
Mhm.
monologue about my life.
Mhm.
And DJ, you're normally, well, we haven't done it in a hot minute because we've been podcasting more, but
Mhm.
you'd normally be just like putting off writing your dissertation to
Right.
to send an
Yeah.
audio note back.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, I love that we, are able to do that. And sometimes we do it video, sometimes it's just audio, and, it
That's
is a good
true.
way to
Yeah.
be able to keep in touch.
Yeah. And now we have the podcast. So now it gives us
Mhm.
an excuse to recording takes much longer just because we don't record for probably half our conversation while we catch up.
Right.
And then I get to spend double the time with you because I'm the editor of our
You
podcast.
do, you
And
are.
yes. And so my favorite is I can tell when you haven't taken your ADHD medication.
Mhm.
I don't know if I actually told you this off air at some point, but when I was editing an episode, so like I look at like the sound waves and it shows like we're different colors. So I can make sure like we're, you know, balanced, not talking over one another because sometimes we, you know, just get on a roll. And there was one that was just like a patch of yellow. Your color's yellow.
Mhm.
It was just this huge patch of yellow for like 6 minutes when I'm like doing nothing. And I'm like, yeah, they didn't take their medication that
Mhm.
day.
Yeah.
You were just like
Or it wears
on it.
off, 'cause I have a prescription to take, like, 20 more milligrams in the evening of my ADHD meds, but
Oh,
I don't ever do that. So I'm not on extended release, so it wears off. That's the thing too, even if I take it, it's like after work, I'm flying on the seat of my pants anyway.
I mean,
Mm.
listen, if it works, it works. And it was all
So
gold. Like when I like sit down to record, I'm like, this is all good stuff. Like it's not like, you know, clip this, whatever. I do
right.
love though that our software that we record on has like an auto button and it does like some magic and it will take out a lot of pauses,
Mm.
ahs,
Mhm.
like before I even go through my first pass and start
Which is
editing.
great
So
because I do a lot of that stuff.
I think of like in this podcast and this extension, did I ever talk about on the show what, like, I had a speech impediment as a child, or I was treated for a speech impediment as a child. Did I ever talk about this on the show?
I don't know, I don't think so.
So I vividly recall it was like fourth grade and I had a speech impediment. So everybody thought, because when I would get up to start like reading, because they would make you stand and read a
Mm.
paragraph and then
Mm.
on to the next kid or whatever. And I would take pauses in awkward places. And now I notice it as somebody who like public speaking is a big part of my livelihood. I do trainings a lot for people. And I notice now looking back, first off, I was out of breath because I was anxious. That was
Mm.
99% of it is I would just keep reading and reading and reading and then I'd run out of breath and have to like pause for a breath in the middle. Like it was anxiety. It wasn't a speech impediment,
Right. I think that's a
but
lot
I
of
had to
it.
go to speech classes. Yeah, so I was pulled out of class to go to a speech class and talk about awkward. They like took me out of social studies and brought me to like what they used to call like the LD classroom, which
Right.
was an awful idea. Like it was just like, listen, this was the 90s, guys.
Right.
So I had to go, and one of the things I had to do is they'd put headphones on me, and I would have to read, and I'd be listening to myself, like, as a 1-second delay. And so I'd have
Mm.
to continue talking and reading while listening to myself on a 1-second delay, and it was the most confusing thing in the world to me. It
God,
really
that would be
frustrated
horrible,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, but it severely changed how I spoke then.
Yeah.
It forced me to slow down. Nobody cured my anxiety. That didn't happen until I was in
Mm.
counseling as a teenager.
Mhm.
But I notice it again when I edit our podcast is I will notice, oh, yep, there I did that thing again, or
Oh.
here's this.
Mm.
And I find all my vocal tics that I hate. So, ugh,
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
great.
So you
It's
get to
good
pay
stuff.
extra attention to it because 'cause you're editing.
It's like
Mhm.
being in fourth grade all over again and
Yeah.
hating my my vocal tics, but I've
But
gotten used to them.
yeah, which is good. I can always notice, like, whenever I'm, like, talking faster, then I'd be like, "Oh, did I take
Mm.
did I take my meds?" That's always my first tell, like, I bet I forgot to take my meds. I sure did.
I'll send you a screenshot next time it
Mhm.
happens in the recording to just be like yellow, and that's like little
Yeah.
purple, big yellow, little purple.
It's so wild too because I was like the textbook ADHD kid, but they didn't talk a lot about ADHD or at all when I was a kid. I mean, all the way up until my freshman year of high school, I would get kicked out of my class or have to move seats. But I asked my mom, did the teachers ever say anything to you about how much they moved my seats or how much they made me go sit in the hallway or how much they, all that stuff? And never. Nobody
Mm,
ever brought that up, but because I was wondering I almost am ready to go on a tangent because you and I before we started before we started recording, one of the things that I was talking about or that we were talking about that I brought up was that bothers me is niches. And
mm,
I think we get too much into the niches and too much into what makes us different instead of like what we really need to focus
mm.
on. But now there's another D, you might know what it's called. I just had to look it up. So not it's gifted something. I'm trying to think of what they're calling it. So a kid who it's like what I was. So a kid with like ADHD diagnosed back then.
Mhm.
But who also like scored super high on standardized tests and like all that stuff.
Yeah,
So there is a special category for like these gifted I can't remember what the name of it is. And it irritated me to no end when I just saw it like a couple weeks ago and was like, what the hell is this? And because most neurodivergent people, it's not like you're neurodivergent, you have ADHD, like you're bad at everything. Like most neurodivergent people, just like anybody, have things that they excel at. So, but now there's this
sure.
whole, did you find what, did you, it is?
It's called twice exceptional.
Yes.
2E.
Yes. And so I was like, what the hell is this? And I look it up. I'm like, oh my God. Like that really describes like most neurodivergent people anyways. Like
Mm,
there is something that they excel in. And so and I think this twice exceptional thing like just highlights the fact that like the wrong idea that we have that if you're ADHD or autistic, then therefore that means that you suck at school. Right. And
mm,
like in a lot of cases, like they call that one of the things that I will stand by that we call is like, it's stealth. Like I realized that like I was a dyslexic
mm,
kid, but I was in college bound reading because like I learned the tricks to like make people
mhm.
think that like I could read faster than I was. Well, I was skipping lines because that's what dyslexic kids do. But like, because I scored high on standardized tests and like all of this stuff, like they don't talk about the fact that like also meanwhile, while DJ is like scoring high in 2 grade levels ahead of all the things, they're also can't sit still during class and it's disruptive and is getting kicked out all the time because I was a 2E person. It's so gross.
See, I always got Deanna is a pleasure to have in class.
I
I,
understand
like,
that too.
recently found all of my old report cards
Yeah.
from childhood, and almost every single note was, "Deanna is a pleasure to have in class,"
Yeah.
which was code for, "She's smart and she's quiet, so we
Right.
just kinda let her be,"
Right.
you know?
Exactly.
So according to this super brief research I did,
Mhm.
is to gifted plus neurodivergent. So usually ADHD, autism, spectrum
Mhm.
disorder, learning disabilities, or other executive function challenges. So these kids score extremely high on tests, have huge vocabularies or creative strengths,
Mhm.
but are often disorganized, forgetful, inattentive, overwhelmed, or socially out of sync. They often
Right.
get misread as lazy, not applying themselves, or inconsistent.
Right. But really, it's a lot of the neurodivergent population that is doing that. Like
Hmm.
to say that the neurodivergent people is like redundant to me is because if you don't see
Mm.
what the person is gifted in, you're not looking well enough.
What's really funny is,
Hmm.
like, we lost the plot of this episode,
We did
but
only,
at the same
yeah.
time,
Uh,
it's so on the plot because part of what we were talking about too is, like, how these friendships are so impactful and important, and I think part of what makes our relationship important and one of the reasons why I think it was cool to talk about was because we're both neurodiverse people
right.
and
Right.
how our communication kind of aligns with that.
Yes, and I know we were presenting at that conference when, like, I had told
Mhm.
you, I was like, "Hey, I did these assessments because I had talked to my therapist who kept telling me about the comorbidity between Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, gender dysphoria, and autism. And like
Good.
it occurred to me that she was trying to tell me she thought I was autistic, but it took a minute to occur to me. And I took these assessments and then both of them came back and were like, "Oh yeah, like you're autistic." And when I went back to my therapist, I was like, "Hey, did these assessments," and she's like, hello," and like
Like,
this is what,
spoiler alert, I've
right,
been telling you this for months.
right. So, but you and I were talking about that, and then you were like, "That's something that you had kind of been wondering about," and then you went and took the
Mhm.
assessments, and then came back and scored on the spectrum as well. And I think, I mean, not just like we talked about the 2E thing. Like I think that like that's just part of the thing is like, because people are like, why is everybody autistic now, right? And the why is everybody trans? Why is everybody this? And the fact of the matter is that like as we learn more and research more and get a better understanding, about like what autism is, you know, then like people who would never have guessed, or like
Mm.
shit, like it's because we didn't really know a lot about it was so misunderstood what it was to be autistic,
Yeah.
and an autistic therapist, because the old ideas persist of like,
That autistic people can't feel empathy and don't
empathy, right?
understand emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm still educating people on this. Like I've worked with a psychiatrist who was like, what do you think about an autistic therapist? Like, is that a thing? And I'm like, I'm an autistic therapist. And that
Mhm.
person was like blown away because like me, like that like because again, like what the misunderstandings of autism are. I think when it
Yeah.
comes to empathy, by the way, that like and what I told my therapist was that um I'm empathetic because I learned the value of empathy. I learned that that's where
Mm.
connection comes from. I learned that like we need to be able to relate. We need empathy to relate to each other. I'm not empathetic because I was born empathetic. I definitely wasn't an
Mhm.
empathetic teenager. Like I could care less. Like I was not that, and the thing is that like someone with autism can have empathy because they learn the value and empathy, which I think is like pretty amazing to be like,
Yeah.
it's a choice that I made to feel empathy, not because like it's something that is inherent to me.
Mhm.
Right. That's
No,
even more
absolutely, and
awesome.
I think so too. I think it's one of those things that like people and to your point of like, oh, we have this diagnosis more and more, so Tylenol's creating
Oh
autism and
shit. Right.
we're not
Yeah.
gonna
I just
we're
took
not
some
gonna
more.
get into
I
that
just took some
today.
more Tylenol before we did our podcast
Stop.
to keep my autism up, and I don't want it to like
I
get less. I want to make sure that I keep it high up there.
I only take Tylenol PM, so I only have autism at night.
And I usually take
But we see these
ibuprofen, but I
increased
can't after my surgery. So I'm even more autistic now
Oh.
than I was before my neck surgery.
Oh my god. What in the world was I trying to say? Oh, we identify autism more for 2 reasons, one of which is, like, diagnostic criteria has changed over time. Autism
Hmm.
used to be seen as a very black and white disorder, and over time and actually the DSM-5, which came out back in 2013, is the one that introduced autism spectrum disorder, which
Right.
got rid of the kind of disjointed, "This is autism, this is Asperger's,
Right.
and the rest is just, like, normal." But so looking instead the fact that we are all exist on the spectrum, we also have learned over time that the diagnosis or the diagnostic criteria were mostly based on how young men present with autism.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't so much look at how like young women or even
Right.
adults present with autism. So it's like very commonly like the eye contact thing. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to someone and I've
Mm-hmm.
shared, hey, I've never gotten a formal diagnosis, but I often score very high on in all of the clinical scales for having autistic traits. And so I identify as a person with autism. And they're like, you're great at making eye contact. And I'm like, I know I'm great at making eye contact because I practice it.
Exactly.
I look and I count how many seconds I'm making eye
Do
contact and then I
you?
thoughtfully look away. Well, yeah, but that's
I
how you get
just,
good at it. But
I just,
I
go ahead.
didn't know people just I didn't know people do that naturally.
Really?
I had no idea people just
I
naturally knew.
knew, I knew because, like, also I didn't grow up with my mom's not an eye contact person. So,
Mm.
I didn't grow up with that, and I knew that, like, other people did it, and I knew that eye contact made me uncomfortable. I knew that if people looked
Mm.
at me, that I would look away, and I
Mhm.
knew and I was often referred to as shy as a kid, which is wild, like, and
Mm.
so it depends on the circles. More in high school, like, I was
Yeah.
referred to as shy because I was always more hyper when I was younger, but, and more, like, just loud and talking to everybody, but I knew that eye contact made me uncomfortable, and I knew that it would make
Mm.
me turn beet red, and I knew how much I hated that shit. So it was something that I practiced because of the fact
Mhm.
of I didn't want to turn red anytime someone talked to me. And I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to like do it because I knew that other people did it. So, so I didn't know again that like, I don't think that I timed it, but I would like, I have to do this thing and I'm going to do it.
Mhm.
And, even if it makes me uncomfortable, I'm still going to do it to where I don't have a problem with it now. Um,
'Cause it's practiced, yeah.
right. And for a while, I was a smoker, right? For like 20 years or
Mhm.
something. And I'd had probably after my bachelor's degree done some research about neurodivergent people who smoke. ADHD was the only thing I knew then, but also it's a barrier, right? Like, and that's something that I used a lot.
Mm.
Like, light a cigarette up in any situation if I had to make eye contact, and and it would make me uncomfortable, so I light a cigarette.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, that's
Mhm.
almost like a version of, like, a stim, and, like, I notice I stim, and I won't share what it is on air because once you know what it is,
Mm,
you can't unsee it, which damn the person who pointed out what it was because 'cause I'm like, "I don't stim," and she's like, "Oh, but have you
mm,
noticed you do this thing?" And I'm like, "Oh,
mhm,
no, I didn't. Thank you.
mm,
Now I do,
mhm,
and now I'm forever self-conscious about it." But just kidding, but I now I notice it, and I
mhm.
tune into it a bit more. Uh,
Yeah.
and just one oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, like, I'm doing more and more research because I'm noticing it in my this is where I always, like, that's what you're we're like, what do I think about? I'm always thinking about, like, patterns. That's why I say, like,
Mhm.
I'm a good therapist because of the fact that my
Mhm.
pattern recognition is, like, is quick. And so, like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing a lot of the times is putting together patterns. And that's where I notice like comorbidities and where I can meet somebody in 5 minutes and be
Mhm.
like, this is like, and then people will refer someone to me and I'll get a referral from a psychiatrist and I'll be like, well, that's because like they have OCD, they have this, that they have, they're autistic. They're like, and I'll hear like, "How are they autistic?" Or, "How did you know?" And that fast. Well, because they have gender dysphoria, because they have OCD, because these are the
Mhm.
comorbidities, right? But, one of the things that I'm noticing is there's a high correlation between Tourette's and neurodiverse people. So, like, when you
Mm.
think about it, it's because STEMs and if you're somebody who is autistic or on the autistic spectrum and you're stimming, a stim over time is going to become like a pattern. Like it
Interesting.
and so like with
I see where you're
Tourette's,
going, yeah.
right, with Tourette's, there is part of it genetic. The same thing with like OCD, but there's probably so much overlap between these genes, right, that cause these things anyways, right? So, like, and if you're doing something over and over because it's a pattern, like, it makes sense that, like, it's a repeated pattern. So that's what we call Tourette's. Cause really, like, all this stuff is just things that we name that we notice are patterns, anyways, that develop and then we name them. So, like, you know, so like I think that like I'm noticing in people who have stems that are repeated stems that
Mhm.
it starts to you start to think like too, like, is that Tourette's? And there is so much overlap
Mm.
between those 2 things.
I get that. No, I see where you're coming from. That's
What's first, chicken
interesting.
and eggs? So, like, when you talk about, like, stimming, like, people who have a stim that's over and over and over, like, also, like, I don't think we don't know enough yet about, like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg. The same with OCD, by
Well,
the
there's
way.
2 schools of thought, but
Mhm. Right?
We could probably go for, like, another hour. This podcast is way longer than I thought it would
I
be.
know. And, it is because, like, we can go off on, like, I mean, I'm the
And that's
tangent
just the
king.
friendship that we
Yeah.
have.
Mhm.
I know.
But,
Taking it back to it.
I think, like, with stems, because you see, like, that's something that is prevalent in ADHD, autism, and Tourette's.
The Venn diagram overlap. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I mean, I get it because I have a lot yeah, I could see that. I gotta
Mhm.
simmer on that some more. I was not planning on getting into Tourette's is not an area that I actively treat.
Right. I've
Yeah.
started seeing the, like, "Hey, this is what it's starting to look like," and so I've had to do research to be like,
Mm,
"Is there something should I be referring someone to a neurologist or something like that?" Because, again, like, what's first, the chicken or the egg? You have to rule it out.
that's true. I don't know where to take it from there.
Yeah. I don't know either.
It's just so enlightening.
Mhm.
I don't know how to take it back. I was, like, looking at my notes again of, like, "Wait a second, we got so off.
How do we segue back to friendships?
How do we bring it back?" F is for
Mhm.
friends. Just
Mhm.
gonna keep singing that song. Well, I will say, DJ, one of the things I really appreciate too about our relationship, and hell, maybe I'll just leave that in so people can see the ebbs and flows of our podcasting, because I just get so stoked to talk to you and to talk shop, and it's nice to be able to speak with someone who, like, gets it, and we can talk about anything and everything, and especially, like, in a specialized field like counseling is, despite what TikTok they want you to believe, this
Mhm.
is a specialization and not everyone can do it.
Right.
And so to talk with someone about it really just helps me feel connected, to the world, to the field, and everything else. So thank you, DJ.
Yeah, no, it
I'm
is
grateful for
awesome.
you in this season of gratitude.
And what has been, like, so, cool, like, us to be able to do trainings together but to see in this podcast and to see that, like, I mean, where we started as, like, baby
Mhm.
counselors in grad school, and then for both of us to be, like, leaders,
Mhm.
in the work that we do and sought after, for our, opinions and our experience and our insights, and to show that, like, you can be neurodiverse and be a good leader, number 1,
Mm.
and also a good clinician, number 2, and a good teacher, number 3. All things that,
Mhm.
like, people
We
don't.
are all those things.
Right, and all things that people, like, don't assume as someone who is, neurodiverse, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, it's the building blocks of what makes each of those things that
Mhm,
can be really, it just sheds a different light on each of those things. Clinicians, teaching,
mhm,
leaders. Yeah.
mhm.
Well, with that being said, I think we have a lot more to pick up next time. Not
We
necessarily next week,
do.
but next
Yeah,
time.
next time. We should rename our
Next time.
podcast. Let's pick
Let's
this
pick
up
this up
next
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 time.
time.
Then I gotta do a whole new thing, change the email
Right.
address, and
Oh,
make a
yeah.
new logo. No, thank you.
Yeah, that's true.
But next time we see you, DJ, you will not be wearing a neck brace for sure.
It's true.
Um, and
Mhm.
we'll have to get the update on where you're at, whether it's Palm Springs or it's somewhere else.
Yeah. Alright. It was good seeing you again, Dee.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and it was good to see you, DJ. And we will pick up with you. Pick up with you? We will pick this up next time.
Time.